In view of the prestigious intervention before me, I think I have to skip a little bit my presentation and to go directly to the opportunities. So I'm Jacques Bouflet. I'm speaking on behalf of EuroCham. I just would like to remind you that EuroCham has over 1,000 members. So we are one of the biggest European chamber in the world outside of Europe, of course. We are composed mainly of European companies settled in Vietnam, which means that we are importing goods from Europe, but we are also manufacturing. I recognize my friend from Piaggio here, and later you will have in the panel discussion someone from Bosch. So these are the companies in Vietnam, manufacturing in Vietnam, and of course we are also exporting to Europe and to the rest of the world. So we have a vital interest in this free trade agreement as an importer, as a manufacturer, as a service provider, and as an exporter. So the FTA opportunities, I think the two precedent speakers have already expose it in detail, so I will just go quickly. Just that the most important is 99.7% of the tariff duty will be eliminated after the end of the transitional period, 7 years, for Vietnamese exports. So only 0.3 will remain. This is unprecedented. To give you an example, the CETA with Canada is 92 or 97, and Mercosur is 92. So Vietnam really benefit a very special treatment. The policy innovation, it's some of it, most important, and the one which will have a practical implication for export, the custom and trade facilitation will be the most important. Rule of origin, also important. The IPR rights and among others, the geographical indication as well as investment protection. So in terms of sector involved, at least from the EU company in Vietnam, what we are interested particularly in is automotive, machinery, agribusiness, fisheries, food and beverages, pharmaceutical, IT. So, next one. So, export opportunities. Well, I would not go too long with statistics. You had enough, I think. So this is statistics from MPI. It was calculated in the assumption the free trade agreement will enter into force in 2018. So now it's probably will have to face a delay. We all expect to have the ratification late this year or early next year, so that the entry into force could be in 2020. Yeah, that's very important because all the years which will be given to you are starting from the date of entry into force. So the key issue will be the ratification, the double ratification, both from European Parliament as well as from the Vietnamese National Assembly. The good news is that if the year, whatever is the date in the year, the counting is year by year. So if it's whenever is the date in 2020, it will go for 2020, first year. So, well, you know the importance of Vietnam-EU relation, particularly for Vietnam exports. So, tariff reduction and tariff elimination from EU companies. So what is important for us, machinery and appliance, practically you see what is the entry into force reduction. So immediately there will be a boosting effect, yeah? Automotive, motorcycle, we all hope to be able, it's also important not only for CBU, but also for parts, which are used because, you know, when you're manufacturing in Vietnam, most of the time you have to also assemble parts imported, yeah? Wine and spirit, you see, rather. Well, what is more important, I guess, for the Vietnamese audience is the tariff reduction for Vietnamese companies, meaning for exports to Europe. So coffee, fresh fruit, and vegetable immediately upon entry into force. So it could be as early as next year. So that's why it's time for you to get ready. Yeah. Rice, well, it has been explained to you, the liberalization is only partial and within a quota tariff. Seafood, already 50% upon entry into force. Textile, 42% upon entry into force. Computer and electronic, 74% upon entry into force. So as early as next year. So in terms of market access services, what could be useful for you also if you use services provided by European service provider, business services, environmental services, postal and courier service, banking, insurance, maritime transport, which will be very important for the exports. Removal of non-tariff barrier. Vietnam has accepted the made in EU marking of origin, which will be very important for giving the image and the consumer recognition. Member state specific marking of origin will continue in parallel, so you, depending of the notoriety of the made in France, for example, could be used as well as made in EU. Okay, most important for automotive, recognition of EU vehicle whole certificate of conformity. Unfortunately, only 5 years after entry into force. So I have to go quickly. So in terms of FDI, the EU-Vietnam Investment Protection Agreement will give a better protection, and the bilateral agreement, which have been negotiated in the past by our member states, will be replaced by this European Free Trade Agreement. Yeah? There will be a tribunal, an international tribunal, to deal with investment disputes. Of course, the Investment Protection Agreement will enter into force only after it has been ratified by the EU member states. You have to understand that for investment protection agreement, we will continue to have the double ratification. Not only the ratification from European institution, the Parliament, but also from each and every individual member states, so 27 or 28. So, better protection of intellectual property rights, extension of terms of protection for design to 15 years, this is very important. Geographical indication, it has been mentioned by the preceding speaker, so specific protection in the pharmaceutical sector. So, expected change after the FTA, public market access, it's very important, as you can see, and in particular the fact that not only the central government market will be open, but also the regional, and Vice Chairman DIριοN will have the pleasure of having our company participating in the bid. Transparency and effectiveness of custom procedure, as I told you, this is a key issue for smoothing import and export. Legal and predictable framework, transparent rule, This is very important, and that's where EuroCham would like to play a facilitator role. So now if we go in the EU investment trends in key sector, so these are the sector where European companies are particularly keen in bringing their contribution to the trade: the clean energy, the food, agriculture, and aquaculture business. We have, some of us are producing, but mainly we are sourcing from Vietnam. Machinery, of course, is our main export with pharmaceuticals. So here is the detail. I don't have that much time to go in each detail, but you can see we've tried to show you by sector what are the key points and the improvement we could get from the free trade agreement. In automobile, it will be, of course, the reduction of duty, food and agriculture, improvement of food safety and quality, green growth, public bidding for public contract, intellectual property rights. You know, EuroCham has an IPR help desk, and we are ready to help you. You just go on our website, and we have a team of colleagues who are there to help you. Nutritional foods. Pharmaceutical is our second biggest export. I mean, EU export to Vietnam. Transportation and logistics will be also key, and we hope that the free trade agreement will facilitate this. So, a point for the broader perspective of ASEAN. So, as it has been told to you, Vietnam is the second free trade agreement, so it will have an advantage compared to other ASEAN countries. If you keep in mind that Singapore is the first one, but Singapore is not very so strong in the manufacture of goods. So Vietnam will entail a privileged position until such time that we have signed agreement with other ASEAN partners. Of course, an important point will be the rule of origin. Can we move? The rule of origin, because as we have only a bilateral agreement between EU and Vietnam, the rule of origin will be strictly applied for a product of Vietnamese origin only. So it has for consequences that nowadays most of the product incorporate parts or elements coming from various origins. So it will be a complicated factor, and unfortunately there is no a simple answer. You have to go product by product to see in the detail how the rule of origin will be calculated to allow the product from the tariff reduction. Again, EuroCham is ready to help you, and if you go on our website, you will see how the system could work, and we will help you to know if your product will qualify for the reduced tariff. Implement the provision of tracing the origin of good will be also a very important issue in terms of quality and in terms of having the recognition of the consumer. The combat against fraud and promoting legitimate trade will be an important issue for having the recognition of the Vietnamese product in Europe. So what are the recommendations that EuroCham could do for Vietnam to get the best benefit of the free trade agreement, enhance the legal framework, provide more access to legal source in English, information hub? Again, EuroCham is ready to bring its contribution, promote market rules and enhance free movement of goods, moving from protectionism to the market economy statute, continue to reduce and simplify domestic administrative procedure, and engage the local stakeholders and private sector in the implementation, monitoring, evaluation process for trade and FTAs. So, recommendation for Vietnamese enterprises. EVFTA Trade Sustainable Development Chapter is one of the major challenges for Vietnam export sector. So, you will have to comply with the requirement, standards on environment protection, fighting against illegal trade, good origin and traceability. That will be very key for your export to Europe. Engage and promote corporate social responsibility, building shared value and contributing to the society. That will be an important element because consumers are more and more demanding goods which are being produced by companies which pay tribute to CSR. Follow fair competition, ensuring transparency and integrity, ensure effective labor and provide good working conditions. Again, you know, consumers in Europe are more and more sensitive to the fact that the goods had been produced under acceptable labor and working conditions. So, of course, strict respect of IPR rights. Recommendation for Vietnamese enterprise. So, key point, it has been said also by the preceding speaker, enterprise need to enhance their competitiveness. This is the most important because the free trade agreement is only an opportunity. You have to transform it in a real commercial gain. So, the activities of EuroCham, if you allow me to just finishing it with that. So, we have 16 sector committees covering most of the sector activities, and we are able to provide technical assistance, advocacy support, as I say, our IPR help desk for all Southeast Asia, and we are working closely with various government authorities, EU delegation, member states, as well as regional authorities. So, EuroCham activities and cooperation, we are providing capacity building. So, we stand ready, and if you have a problem, if you want to know something about EU market, if you need some help, we are ready to welcome you and to support you. Thank you very much.